I've been up front here many times, but the jitters never go away. They just keep on coming back. So, Lord help me. uh, a few months back, I talked to you about recovery, and today is recovery part 2. You probably know that I have a great interest in that area, in seeing how God is working and changing lives, and really, really have been trying to take a close look at the spiritual essence of that program and how God is reaching people and plugging them in to his way, his principles. And so we started this program out looking at the 12 steps, which is what their program is a 12-step program. And we're going to review the first 3, and then we'll follow through with mostly 4 and a little bit of number 5. Some who seek deliverance express an experience they call an overwhelming God consciousness, followed by a vast change in feeling and outlook. And these such transformations are frequent, but not necessarily the norm. This week, while I was having conversation with Pastor Sean, a friend joined our conversation when he overheard us talking about AA. And I was really moved by his story, and he shared his journey of sobriety. I had no idea. And he was one of those people that had just such an experience of a real spiritual awakening. He told us that he knew that he was becoming aware that he had a problem and thought he better be trying to get a handle on it. And so he started attending the meetings, and he was convinced of their credibility and thought that he could benefit from the program. So he decided he was going to take a serious look into it. He went home and he made his decision. And in prayer, he said he literally felt something touch the top of his head and go down through his body. And he said, I've never felt anything like it before or after. But he said it gave me such courage and support that the decision I made was the right one. And so he is certainly glad today that he worked the steps, he was successful, and, who's to say what hardships he has spared his family and children because he chose the good path. But for most people, this experience is what has been called the educational variety because they develop slowly over a period of time. As a result of working the program, members have undergone a profound alteration in his reaction to life, and that such a change could hardly have been brought about by himself alone. They had tapped an unsuspected inner resource which they presently identify with their own conception of a power higher than themselves. And I can assure you that power is God. Stories abound in what they used to be, what happened to them, and what they are like now. There is help for all who will not close his mind to spiritual concepts. He can only be defeated by an attitude of intolerance or belligerent denial. Using the how key, we unlock the essentials of recovery. You remember the how talked about before. H is for honesty, O is for open-mindedness, and W is for willingness. I want to share with you a short quote from an author who wrote, I think it's called The Spiritual Steps Through the AA Program, but his name is Herbert Spencer, and he says this: there is a principle which is a bar against all information, which is proof against all arguments, and which cannot fail to keep a man in everlasting ignorance. That principle is contempt prior to investigation. So I think it pays for us to have an open mind, approaching, all aspects of life. But this spiritual program supports folks having a spiritual, close relationship with God. And even for folks that are not alcoholics, they proclaim, as a result of working the 12 steps, they have been able to meet other difficulties in life. They see in them a way to happy and effective living, alcoholic or not. You see, the Bible describes our condition for all people in Isaiah 1, 5, and 6. The whole head is sick, and the whole heart faints. From the sole of the foot even to the head, there is no soundness in it, but wounds and bruises and putrefying sores. But praise be to God, He does not leave us in that condition. His plan is to bring us full circle. His desire is to reconcile us back to Himself, and He will complete the work He has started. The Bible is our wellness book that points us to the great physician. It's the map that leads us right to the heart of God. I believe that AA is a chapter in God's plan to reach people where they are, because there are some who won't open a Bible or set foot in a church. He wants to reach the ones who are violently opposed to religious matters. If AA were a church or a religious denomination, they would never come. For many have not had the privilege to behold the picture of a loving God. They are confounded when they look upon this world of warring individuals, warring theological systems, and utter calamity with deep skepticism. They look in bewilderment at many individuals claim to be godly and wonder, how could a supreme being have anything to do with it all? Yet, God is working through people and other means to reassure us, to encourage us, to lay aside our prejudice, express a willingness to have a second look. The turnaround begins when we believe in Him, and then we commence to get results. The message contained here must have some depth and weight to it in order to reach and hold the interests of these people who are so sick. You see, their problem is not a willpower problem. Rather, it's a self-will problem. There's a difference. And AA shows them how to redirect it, reposition it. They must learn its proper place for how God intended it. We are all wounded and broken souls. And for some who have found themselves in the death grip of alcoholism, God knew the AA course would pull chronic alcoholics back from the gates of death. How wonderful is our God. Isaiah 59:1. Behold, the Lord's hand is not shortened that it cannot save, nor his ear heavy that it cannot hear. As soon as a person says he believes or he's willing to believe, we emphatically assure him he is on his way. And upon this simple cornerstone, a wonderfully effective spiritual structure can be built. One step at a time. That's how it's done. So in step 1, we admitted that we were powerless over our problem, or alcohol, or be what have you. That our lives had become unmanageable. Whether we realize or not, we do not have the wisdom to manage our own lives. I think about the Beatitudes and what Jesus said in Matthew 5:3. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of God. We realize our great need. And then on the other hand, pride feels no need. And so it closes the door against Christ and the blessing he came to give. There's no room in the heart of such a person. He's filled up with self-will. And an alcoholic is a person with self-will run riot. Step 2, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. This is called the hope step because we begin to see what is available to us. Step 3, we made a decision to turn our wills and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. This step is the action step, the decision-making step. We let God become our new manager and we'll accept life on his terms. See, we've all received a precious gift from God, freedom to choose. It was a risky proposition for him. He wanted us to choose good, but knew that we might choose evil. He wanted us to choose life, but what if we chose death? He wanted us to choose freedom, but knew we might choose addiction. Still, it was a risk he was willing to take so that he would know this. When we ask him to come into our lives, it's because we have freely chosen to have him there. Turning our lives over to God means placing our hope and confidence in him instead of people. People will disappoint us. Have you ever felt that hoping only brings disappointment? Broken promises leave us feeling bad. Perhaps we were devastated because we put our hope in the wrong place. This is what the Lord says in Jeremiah chapter 17. Cursed are those who put their trust in mere humans, who rely on human strength and turn their hearts away from the Lord. They are like stunted shrubs in the desert, with no hope for the future. They will live in the barren wilderness, in an uninhabited, salty land. But blessed are those who trust in the Lord and have made the Lord their hope and confidence. They are like trees planted along a riverbank, with roots that reach deep into the water. Such trees are not bothered by the heat or worried by long months of drought. Their leaves stay green, and they never stop producing fruit. That's in Jeremiah 17, 5-8. See, trusting God changes everything. And this is a result of coming to know him, his character, his love, and his goodwill for us. And referring to the Beatitudes again, as we proceed soon to step 4, in Matthew 5:8, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. Jesus points out the need of purity of heart, the wisdom that is from above. James 3:17. The words of Jesus, blessed are the pure in heart, have a deeper meaning, not merely pure from that which is lustful or sensual, but he's pointing to the motives of the heart, free from pride and self-seeking, humble and unselfish and childlike. You see, the Holy Spirit takes the truth concerning God and Jesus Christ, whom he hath sent, and opens it to our understanding. The pure in heart see God now. It's not just a future promise. We get to behold him now in his purity and loveliness of his character. And when we behold him as such, we are drawn to him. He is seen as a father longing to embrace his repenting sons and daughters, and our hearts are filled with unspeakable joy. The decision we made in step 3 to turn our wills and our lives over to God prepares us to work the next step. And this is our prayer we would like to have before we move on. And it is this: our plea and prayer to God is, God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self, that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. When we've made this commitment, we are now ready for a new beginning. And although step 3 is a vital and crucial step, it won't have a lasting effect, long-lasting effect, unless we face what has been blocking God out. For people with addictions and alcohol problems, or compulsive behaviors, or other things, are but a symptom of what the real underlying problem is. So we have to get down to causes and conditions. And that's what the purpose of step 4 is. We're starting upon a personal inventory. This is a house cleaning exercise. How many of you are good housekeepers? I used to think I was, pretty much. One time just for fun, I asked Rick, I said, well, how do you think I'm doing on keeping the house clean? I said, give me a score between 1 and 10. And this is just for fun, you know. What kind of a score do you think it gave? I was still working back then, so it's okay. He gave me a 7. I hope I've come up the ladder a little bit more now, but who knows? But we're talking about some personal house cleaning in this step. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you to give any information or expose anyone in any way. But this is the process that they go through. And this is vital to helping them clean the house of their person. They get in touch. We can get in touch also with our shadow, that part of us that we have hidden away that nobody sees. It's our repressed nature. It's the part that hides our resentments, fears, anger. This step requires us to take a close look at our personal history and acknowledge what we see. As the process unfolds, we will recognize the need for change. Lamentations 3:40, which goes along with step 4, is, let us examine our ways and test them, and let us return to the Lord. Step 4 is this: we made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And I will explain a little bit more of that in a moment. First, I came across this that lends itself to this activity. You know, Jesus was always confronting the religious leaders about their hypocrisy. They were claiming to have virtues and qualities that they didn't have. One time he said to them, you are careful to clean the outside of the cup and the dish, but inside you are filthy, full of greed and self-indulgence. First, wash the inside of the cup and the dish, and then the outside will become clean too. Matthew 23:25 and 26. Making this inventory is a good way to wash the inside. Some of that washing may involve bathing our life in tears. It may be removing pride, being humble, being honest. By uncovering the hidden parts of ourselves, we will be able to change the outer person. Now remember, because we have made a commitment to God in the first 3 steps, we are not alone in this activity, in this step. He comes to us as a caring friend. And I want also to confirm with you that this is not a morbid self-condemnation activity, but an honest evaluation looking at our life history. Searching means fact-finding, fact-facing. Fearless means to have courage. Moral means truth. We made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. And as I've already told you, I've really been drawn into looking into the AA program. I've talked to people who are professional appointed speakers. I'm not. I am not an appointed or designated speaker for AA in no shape or form. I simply have an interest in the religious connection and wanted to learn all I could about how it works, because it's made such an impact in my own family, my own children and friends and others. Maybe there's something I can learn, pass it on. But I have to tell you that I really, really struggled with how to go about this, because why do I need to clean house? I thought I did that already. I'm a Christian. I had a profound conversion experience. I love the Lord with all my heart. There's nothing I would hold and not give to him. So what was I going to do or learn from this activity? So I had confusion. I had questions, and I did a lot of praying. God, please help me to see what you want me to see here. And I certainly cannot convey something that I can't see or understand. Well, hang with me on that because it's going to unfold. As step 4 says, this is making a moral inventory. Okay, how do we make an inventory? What is an inventory? It's a written list of items, right? If a business takes no regular inventory, they usually go broke. Our personal lives are a business too. Greatest business in the world for us is the business where we can have peace of mind, serenity, and happiness. That's what the alcoholic wants. He knows he has a problem, but he wants the same thing we do. He wants that power source. He wants to learn how to get plugged into God so that he doesn't have to go back to drinking or some other harmful way of life. So in taking our inventory, we find some damaged and unsaleable goods. We want to clean that up and get rid of them promptly and without regret. We don't want it to take up space in our storeroom. It's of no value because we can't sell it. So when we look into our minds, we're going to find flawed thinking process, which are the damaged goods. And what we discover is that we bump into self-will. And there are 3 common manifestations of a life run on self-will. The flawed thinking processes in our minds that block God out are resentments, fear, and guilt and remorse associated with the harms done to other people. And as long as our minds are occupied with these things, then we block God's Spirit out. Resentment is the number 1 offender. From it stem all forms of spiritual disease. For we have not only been mentally and physically sick, we've been spiritually sick too. But when the spiritual malady is overcome, we straighten out mentally and physically. So, to begin the inventory of step 4, we will commence to make our list. And this is a very private exercise. Does anyone in the room have any idea of this exercise or what I'm talking about? Just curious, okay? What they do in dealing with resentments is they set them on paper, because you can only think of one resentment at a time. But when you make a list and you write them all out, it's amazing what ends up on that list. But you may think, I don't have any resentments toward anyone. Is there something that ever replays in your mind when something happens, you go through a stressful time? Does something that happened to you in the past, does something that someone done to you come back and causes you hurt and pain again? Okay, so now is the time I would like to ask you gentlemen to please bring the board over for me. We're going to do this step 4 on the board. There's every color in here but black, so brown will work. Okay, great. I can even pretty much reach it. Thank you very much. Okay, the way this works is I brought a sample because as I told you, this is a personal thing between you and God. And when members of AA go through this program, they usually have a sponsor that helps them, or a trusted friend, a clergyman, or whatever, because it helps them with accountability. It helps them because they've been through the exercise, and it helps them to know how to go about it, because it really is kind of overwhelming when you stop and think about, I'm going to write down. But it's amazing. Some people have pages, and some people maybe only have one page. I'm interested in going through the step myself after I've learned what it is and what it can do for me. But I've pulled up some things that are minor in my own life to try to help illustrate what I'm talking about here. So please indulge me a little bit. I'm going to try to follow my chart here. Uh-oh. I need a marker that works, though. Oh, this one does. Oh. Are these all dried up because they haven't been used for a while? In the children's room, I also have some in there. Oh, this one will work, Tammy. So what they do is make their list. We're going to use a chart. Oh, so much for a straight line, but okay. Can you read it? Okay. They have us make a list of who we're angry at, if anybody. Over here in this column, I'm going to put elementary school teacher. These are real things in my life, but not too revealing. They will serve to explain this example here. I'm going to be making more columns too. But I have elementary school teacher, co-worker, and my mother. Now, this is not an enemy hit list, okay? These are not people I hate or anything. These are just events that happened to in my life that I'm resentful about. Okay, I'm And we worked the columns going down. So now I'm going to go down here and put the cause for the reason it hurt me. Okay, that's associated with this one. The next one down, I'm going to put down all the things. I think you'll know what I mean by a fire starter. There's a verse in the Bible that says the tongue is like a torch of fire. Well, that's this girl here, I'm telling you. The coworker. Melanie might even know what I'm talking about. A few years back, this happened to me not that awful long ago before I retired. We went on a hike together, and she was letting me blow off steam. Okay, some other things. Racial prejudice. Fabricated falsehoods, false representation. And I believe she had a real jealous she added in for me because of my position and authority. I'm just going to put that. Eraser here. I'm going to move Mother down just a little bit. Okay, we're ready for column 3. This is the effect had on my life. What happened here was I was a youngster in school. I think I was about 9 years old. I was a very hyper, rambunctious child. Recess was my favorite part. And when the bell rang, I had to go to the bathroom the whole time. I was not going to use my recess. So the bell rang, and I missed my opportunity, so I ran back to the classroom. As soon as I sat down, I asked if I could go to the bathroom. Way, you going to let me go to the bathroom? So you know what happened? I couldn't help myself. So that, yeah, embarrassment, terrible. Humiliation of the experience. And long-term ridicule, not only from my classmates, but my own brothers. I mean, they were embarrassed too, and they heard about that. So, I need to keep going down my column. The next one, coworker. I had quite a lot of anxiety over this gal. I've never met anyone like her in my entire life. She made my job very, very difficult. So this column here is also about a threat to what our basic instincts are. You know, our self-esteem, our financial picture, our personal relationships, our ambitions, and so on. And so here, she definitely affected my personal relationships. Distrust, anger, and frustration. She was a threat to my finances because I felt like if my employer believed all of the stuff and the things that was going on, it would threaten my position that I had. So threatened, again, personal relationships. In this case, it would have been threatened with my employer. Okay. The way, just to use one more. This one, I'm going to put the action that hurt me here is the fear and anxieties that were my mother's became mine. Love my mother to death. We have a great relationship. This is not a mother bashing thing. But because of things that happened to her when she was growing up, she had this fear. I don't even think she realizes what an impact it had on us kids. I'm the youngest of 3 children. I have 2 older brothers. Okay, so over here, personal, it affected my personal safety. Fear of going to bed. And I'll tell you what happened. Threat to my sense of security. Well, that would be this one here. My father worked during the week. He worked nights, and so Mom was home with us alone during the week. And he was always very sensitive to anything out of the norm. He thought somebody was going to break in our house and do us bodily harm, whatever. So she was always kind of teaching us what to do in the event that somebody was going to approach the house or whatever. And just, I could tell you a lot of stories, but this one happened in the evening. It was in the winter. I think it was dark. And out of nowhere, the doorbell goes off. We lived in the country, had no nearby neighbors whatsoever. All of us were in the house. Mom and all of us. And the doorbell goes off. She told us to hit the floor, turn off all the lights. So So we did. We were scared to death. Well, she crawled to the phone and called my dad and called the police to come and help rescue us, you know. Well, that went on more than once. And as it turned out, after my dad got there and we were investigating what happened, the Avon lady was there earlier that day, and when she pushed the doorbell, it stuck. And so later on in the evening, it came unstuck and rang. And so anyhow, but that's only one story of many I could tell you. I had a terrible fear every night, unless it was a weekend, when my dad was home. Okay. But I would go to sleep. I slept with my blanket up over my head like this, where I could just barely see, because I figured when this dude comes through the window, he's not going to see me. He's going to walk right on by. But the fear and anxiety, you don't realize is what can develop as a small child, and that's carried with me for a lifetime. No, I'm not scared of the dark. I grew up and learned what a farce that whole thing is all about. But it still has impacted my life. So I could say it is a resentment because it did come from my mother, even though it was not intended. Okay, over here is what to do with it. I'm going to probably have to get back to my book. There's something amazing about writing all of this stuff down and going through these. You can imagine there's probably quite a list for some people. When you look at the word resentment, I'm gonna go there first before I continue here. Skip over something I have here. The first part of resentment means to do again, like repaint or recycle or whatever. And sentiment, the second part of the word, means is connected to a word that means to feel. So when you put that together, resentment means to feel old pains and old hurts. Okay, when somebody does something to me and they hurt me, maybe they steal something from me, maybe they lie to me, and when they do that, that is a wrong on their part for doing so. That is not a resentment. It doesn't become a resentment until later I replay that thing in my mind and I feel it again. Then I'm hurting myself second time, third time, and on and on and on. And for alcoholics, they replay all this stuff that has happened in their lives, and they blame it on everyone else except for where the real blame may lie. And it keeps them locked into their behavior. So writing all this out and really learning the truth of what our inventory is telling us about ourselves, this is a life-changing step, because we get a look at what the real truth is. Because they, along with us, want to develop the best possible relationship that we can have with the world and everybody in it. And another part of this exercise, step five is linked heavily to step 4. But let's continue on here with our chart. What are we going to do about this resentment that comes back to our mind however many times? How do we get rid of it? Yes. And when someone does something wrong to us, remember that we're all sick. So they're reacting in a way they're not healthy. They have done something wrong to us. And whether it's a justified resentment or an unjustified resentment, it still does the same thing in our mind because it blocks us from God's Spirit to come in and direct our thinking. So what they call this is the resentments, thinking. And the best way to get rid of something that's causing you so much anxiety is to pray about it. You might have to pray about it more than once. You might have to pray about it every day for 2 weeks. You might have to pray about it every day for 2 weeks. But it will go away, depending on what it is, how deep-seated or whatever. And some of the things like, some of these things up here are not really too serious. But you can imagine some of the more serious hurts that have happened to us in our lifetime. And God gives us a way, get it out. This whole system liberates us and frees us from the pain and the shame and the guilt. Okay, this chart was about stuff that happened to us. Getting ahead of myself just a hair there. I want to say here too that even though these things occurred, we do also have a responsibility. Like, okay, what could have been my responsibility here on this first issue? Yeah, I mean, how I wished I would have over the years. But that was not a priority at that time. Okay? So I just put that there. And then down here, what could I have done to develop a better relationship with this gal? That was unreal. What? Oh, I did. But she's the victim. She didn't do anything wrong. But she could yell and scream at me all day, and that was okay. Anyway, sounds like I still have it going on, huh? We were able to resolve this. We're actually friends now. She actually came to my retirement party. I was really surprised to see her there. I was really surprised Rick invited her. But anyway, okay, here, my part. I could have listened to her. I could have engaged myself more, just like you said. I could have tried to develop a closer relationship with her, taken her seriously. But what I did was I avoided confrontation with her, and I excused her unfavorable behavior as that she was just crazy nut. Wanted nothing. She needed a friend, and these behaviors were sending the wrong message to me. But as it turns out, that was the reason for it in the first place, right or wrong. That is what she wanted. So I'm thankful that that's resolved, and we do have a good relationship. And we were able to talk it out, forgive each other for all the things. But prayer releases there's something powerful about it that releases these things from taking over our mind. And, okay, where am I at? Down at the bottom now. I don't know that I've really been able to express to my mother the seriousness of this. Because, she'll laugh about the stories. We all do. But I don't think she understands the impact that they had. I mean, it was so severe that she told one of the boys to go get a gun out of the bedroom, all the way down the hall. And, well, they were frozen. Somebody was just about ready to break in the house, and they were not going to move. Somehow, I don't know what it was, somehow I had some kind of a grit that I wasn't going to stay there and let somebody come in. And I went and got the gun. I was just a little kid, and I handed it to my brother. But the trauma of that, fierce. All right, so step 5, I talked to you about the stuff that's happened, in our lives potentially, but and about starting out on a life-changing new way, cleaning house and being available to let God's Spirit dwell in us and not let our minds be occupied of the junk. We want that out. Step 5 is we admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Okay, so this, you can imagine, involves honesty, forgiveness, going and trying to right all the wrongs, if you've done wrongs, and make things right between you and the other person as far as laid within your power, without causing someone else harm. I mean, if you've done something in the past that was not right, maybe it should stay there, if by doing so it would bring further harm. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, that might be what, very true. That might be. But even on a more serious level, that could have a grave impact for somebody that didn't have a clue about whatever the trouble was, Oh, yeah. I always used to think that anger was just one of those things that flared up because, but when you understand where it comes from, it sheds a whole new light on it. We realize that the people who wronged us were perhaps, they're sick too. So we did not like their symptoms and the way that these disturbed us. They, like ourselves, were sick too. And the key is prayer, which we already talked about. We ask God to help us show them the same tolerance, pity, and patience that we would cheerfully offer a sick friend. When a person offended, we said to ourselves, this is a sick person. How can I help him? God save me. Please, your will be done and not mine. Avoid retaliation or argument. If we engage, we destroy our chance of being helpful. We may not be able to help at all, but at least God will show us how to take a kindly and tolerant view of each and every one. My part, referring to the list again and moving on to step 5. When we saw our faults, we listed them We admitted our wrongs honestly and were willing to set matters straight. I'm at the very end here. As a result of doing this, step 4 inventory, we will discover that much of the burden of the past hurts and pains will be lifted. Can you see any benefit in this for a Christian? Like I said, I struggled with, I'm already supposed to have a clean slate. I got a dirty house. Rick says, I got a dirty house? I didn't want to even think I did. But when you stop, make a written list of past things that maybe still come to your mind, then it needs to be dealt with. For we are now on the basis of trusting and relying upon God. He does not want to humiliate us. God bestows dignity and healing upon us when we enter the process of recovery through faith in Christ. 1 Thessalonians 5:23 and 24. May the God of peace himself sanctify you entirely, and may your spirit and soul and body be preserved complete, without blame, at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ. We want to have a clean house when he comes, don't we? Jesus will help us do that. Faithful is he who calls you, and he also will bring it to pass. And I want to share with you in final closing here the full, I'm hidden, aren't I? The full serenity prayer. I didn't know that there was a long version of the serenity prayer. Did you know that? I want to share that with you. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as the pathway to peace, taking as Christ did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it, trusting that he will make all things right if I surrender to his will, that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with him forever. Would you guys